relates except it's part of a costume. And the part of the costume is because I'm reading, hopefully, a story about a really annoying, horrible costume I had to wear at a Christmas concert when I was in grade 2.
Okay.
I know, Derek, you're just going, where does she get these stories from? I just have that kind of a mind, I guess.
Yeah, well, they're childhood memories that all come back. I know that it all stays with us, right? I mean, I
Yep.
can still remember what I recited in kindergarten at the Christmas concerts, you know? I remember being in tears before I had to go out on the stage. I was terrified.
Actually, I wasn't, as I was quite bold about it in the story. It wasn't until a few years later I realized I probably should have been embarrassed. But, you know, some little kids, it didn't even occur to me that the costume was quite embarrassing.
Uh-huh.
I was kind of semi-oblivious to the titters from the audience.
Yeah. Well, my brother played a tree in the nativity scene, and I don't think we ever let him forget it.
Well, I think I may have trumped a tree, but you guys can let me know.
Okay. Yeah, whenever the family gets together, we often put skits together and things. You know, we have a reunion usually once a year, and so we always.
Bill.
No worries, Peter. We'll write in a tree character for you to play.
Oh, there, Bill. Okay.
So whose Christmas tree are we seeing?
Eric has one in behind.
I've got
you.
one behind me.
It looks
You may
lovely.
see Char's has a tree.
Very nice.
Ours is there. And
I have a Christmas Santa, but not what you can see.
my tree is hiding the big pile of boxes that we're filling with junk to get rid of. We had the Diabetes Association stop by with their truck in the hallway, 32 boxes of stuff that I pulled out of the crawl space, which had been down there for over 10 years and never touched. Tell you what we accumulate, it's unbelievable. Did you say Bill had joined us too, Carl? I just go to different view, gallery. There, yeah, Bill, you're there. Hello, Bill. You're on mute there. Throw your mute off so we can get your sound checked.
Sorry.
Oh.
Sound okay?
Sounds
good.
Yes. Your mellifluous voice is well heard, and good to have you with us on.
Well, that looks like a pretty picture behind Kathleen on Kathleen's couch or whatever. I like that. Birds or I guess crows. Some sort of blackbird.
Yeah. So, Bill, did you feel the shaker up there on Denman today, this morning, 4 o'clock?
No. That was more the southern group, I would think, of violence. Yeah, no, nothing.
Yeah. I didn't feel anything here, although our dog did bark all of a sudden in the middle of the night, and my wife said this morning, maybe that's why he barked. Maybe he felt the earthquake, but.
There you go. Yeah, I didn't feel it either.
So you didn't bark either, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't bark.
Not that he'd admit, anyway.
No, I didn't bark.
Yeah. Yeah, when a dog barks, you've pretty much got to think that it was an earthquake. I mean, that's always been my experience, Derek. So.
That's the first thing you go to, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I know someone's trying to break in.
That too.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually they bark when someone walks by and you can't see the dog. That's happens to me. I'll walk by someone's house and they'll start barking and I'm like, I can't see the dog, but they can somehow know I'm going by.
Yeah. Our alarm dog is, when he's on duty, I'll tell you, nobody gets by our house without us knowing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good thing. No, I meant to make her 11. Yeah, I meant she was supposed to be 11. I had mixed them up by accident. 12 got ahead of 11 for some reason. Sorry.
Yo, Carl and Derek, I never did get an answer. Is our time limit tonight like roughly 10 minutes? Like we were told we could have some extra time.
Yeah, I think 10 minutes.
8 to
is
10 minutes. Yeah,
probably-
that's about what mine
Yeah,
is.
yeah, some had a little bit longer because like yeah. No, she's gonna. No, she's.
Yeah, and there'll be some shorter, and we've got about 12 readers signed up. So, you know, if nobody goes too far beyond 10 and there's some below, we'll, you know, a couple hours will be wrapped up. We'll be just about right. Yeah.
I asked Carl about 15 and he said that was okay, but if
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I said we only have like 11 readers, so.
Yeah. And, oh yeah, that's right, 11, not 12. And I think my piece is probably around 5, so you can have my time, Jennifer.
oh, there you go.
No
I
problem.
promise you it'll be worth it.
All right.
Although it's not in the holiday spirit in any way, shape or form, but
Okay.
I'm not, you may not want me to be dead last. You may need something happier after me.
Well, think of something. Maybe I'll come up with something really short. I don't know.
You can throw me onto the end, Carl, if you want. I don't mind. I'll be
There you go.
I'll be the caboose.
You can write the ship.
Well, we have you as number 8, but whatever. You can do 2 pieces if you want.
Well, I've only got one Christmas piece worked
Oh,
out.
You make up something on the spot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The story I'm going to read tonight, I actually made it up. I just based it on little short 2 or 3 sentences from my memoir, and I expanded it into a story, and I think it's going to be published in the Cowichan Valley Citizen.
Perfect.
Perfect.
But I just, like you said, I just did it pretty spur of the moment because I knew I was going to do a couple of podcasts, and Andrea usually publishes my story every year for the Citizen.
Nice.
Story is on. Derek's there. Joe's not here yet. Jacqueline's not on yet. I'm
And
assuming
then-
either Joe's coming in person or he's coming online. I don't know what he never said anything.
He usually comes in person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I know, we have 2 in person, Joe and Dean.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's always nice, Joy, when you find those little kernels in a story that you've already written and you know,
Yeah.
boy, that one's got resonance, you know, that one needs to be developed more, and then you take it and turn it into its own little thing. It's great.
I guess that's what I did, but I couldn't have put it in such good words, Derek. You always express it well.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So
Hi, Derek. It's Charlene here.
Hello,
How's
Charlene.
my volume level for you guys? Can you hear me well?
Very
Mhm.
well.
Yes?
Yeah,
And Carl,
it's-
you talk?
Hello, hello, hello.
Our volume is good?
Hello. Hello out there in Zoom land.
Derek, do you hear Carl?
Very clearly, yeah, yeah, you're both at a good volume.
Okay. We're adjusting your volume. Could you talk to us now?
Sure, what would you like me to talk to you about?
Anything.
Anything in particular?
Just-
Okay, how's my volume sounding now? Is that all right? Or is that too loud or too soft?
No, that sounds good to me.
Our audience just said it's perfect. Thank you.
Great. So how many people there in house tonight, Charlene?
We have 1 reader and we got Dean's sisters here and someone else was here and they're coming back. They just had to go get something. And then there's Char and me and Sheila.
Okay. Well, enough for a small party. That's all right.
And Joe Lunchbucket just arrived.
There we go.
So what's happening in Alberni for the Christmas season? Anything? Our Festival of Lights was canceled. We were kind of shocked about that, but I actually heard that we had 30,000 people come a couple of years ago. So they
Wow.
canceled it because of COVID this year. But they did an Arts on the Avenue type thing, a old time Christmas, and they had
Oh.
smaller numbers for that.
Yeah, I don't think there were too many public events happening in Alberni this year. You know, they did put the usual lights up and everything, but it's pretty low key. And now with the latest announcements that the provincial government just came out with today, I guess the Totem basketball tournament, which is always the highlight of the first week of January, is toast. And I'm sure there was probably a hockey tournament or two lined up. And
Yes,
they're
hockey tournaments and stuff like that. The kids still can play hockey between each other because it's just one, like, there's just one team against one other team, but it's not a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then New Year's Eve parties are canceled. Unless you're having it in your own house, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of drinking alone at home this year, I think.
Well, I'll be drinking down in the States, so I'll have a bunch of family around to drink with, so I won't be by myself.
Oh, you're going south. Where are you going?
Woodinville, Washington. We leave on Wednesday.
Nice.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy that they just put an advisory, it wasn't like you can't go. They just advise you not to, which is I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Will you have to test when you come back up?
Yes.
Even
Yes.
though you're back? Yeah.
Yes, when you drive down, you just got to do the one test. But if you fly down, come back, I think you got to do like 3 tests.
Wow.
It's yeah.
I guess because on the plane there'd be more exposures to more people than if you're driving.
Yeah.
privately, yeah.
I think you got to do it before you leave the States, and then at the air, and then I think at the air, or maybe you do it at the airport. And I can't remember. Someone told me their third place, but I can't remember where the third place was.
Kathy, how are you doing? You're a little
I'm
muted.
muted. Now I'm good.
There you go.
All right.
I love your bird. That picture of the birds behind you. Those black birds or whatever they are.
They're crows. We call them
Yeah.
crows.
Okay, I thought that was a
It's a
crow.
murder. It's a murder of crows.
A
I
murder.
thought it was crows.
Yeah.
Oh,
We were admiring your murder while you were gone. Yeah. How's everything over in Gibson's?
Great. It's good. It's good. You know, I mean, what can you say?
Mm-hmm. And are you in the snow warning for tomorrow or tonight and tomorrow?
I guess so. So I'm glad I'm retired.
Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere.
No.
Yeah.
You got your tree up. Is that your tree?
Yes, yeah. My daughter is she's a little bit of a Christmas freak, so she had it going. I don't know, the second weekend of December, I think we got it up. So that's pretty good. Yeah, it was actually a volunteer, that wildling that started growing in our front flower bed right beside the sidewalk.
Oh.
And when we moved in, I saw it and I thought, oh, we could take it. Oh, let's just let it grow. And finally, it was starting to, cover a little bit of the sidewalk. So I said, well, maybe it's time to bring it inside. So we took it down. It's our Christmas tree.
No, that really shocked me what she said today, because she said, "Oh, we're not going to do any more measures. We're not going to change anything." And then all of a sudden, she did. I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't have told us you're going to change stuff when you really knew you were."
Yeah, well, just give it a few days. It'll change again. Not to worry.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Well, if it changes anymore, I might not come back. I may just stay down there. I like to travel.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's lovely.
Oh, it's nice to be able to travel.
Yeah.
I wonder where Jackie is. She's always so prompt.
I'm sure she'll pop in at the last minute here.
Hopefully.
I'll just shoot her a little message just to make sure she hasn't forgotten.
Carl, I didn't say how long my piece was. I changed what I was going to do, so I'm going to actually read an excerpt from a novel in progress, and it's about 1,500 words, if that's not too long. So.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Always happy to get a taste of a novel in progress. It's always inspiring when other writers tackle novels, not that I've never written one, but I know what a daunting task it is. And at some point you're always saying, why did I ever, commit myself to this? And then you get to the end and say, oh my God, I did it. That's incredible. What stage are you at, Bill? How far into it are you?
Oh, well, it's a prequel to my only novel, which is in the library. So it's a social work noir novel. And I'm about 60,000 words in. And it was a little more, I made it more complex than it needed to be.
Okay.
But what I did recently, I did the 3-day novel contest in September, and then that was the first time ever. And then a friend really liked the story, so she said, you should write a sequel. I really want more. So I spent November writing a 56,000 word sequel. And so I've gotten I realize whatever is holding me back, it's not for want of being able to spew out words, carelessly. And so.
Yeah.
Pardon me for hopping up and down like a jackrabbit, but I'm really learning why people get proper lighting equipment. And, they have proper lights and a proper camera, because with my mini laptop that I'm doing this on, I had one kitchen light in behind me that was just driving me nuts. It was shining in my eye. And there's one light in the kitchen, the ballast is going, I think, and it'll go dim and then it'll go brighter. And then I have an entrance light because I'm on a desk in my open plan living room, but it also shows right through the kitchen. So I'm really having a lot of empathy for lighting directors and people who do Hollywood movies and have to deal with lighting.
Yes.
It must be a real talent.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't realize how much of an effect it does have on what you're looking at. I mean, lighting can just control so much. But you're looking fine, Joy. I can see well enough. It's all good.
Good.
I think what we're doing it's okay. We're not professionals here.
My daughter bought me one of those circular lights, that people who stream use, that you put kind of
Oh, I see.
behind your
Oh, so
computer.
you're smarter about light than I am.
Yeah, I don't really
I tried it out and I just couldn't stand it. I found it just so distracting to have this circle of light blaring at me here. And
It's like those backgrounds you can do, and they're making, no, that's just, all I look is that background.
Yeah.
Libby's done that a few times. There's like, okay, you can't focus on the person. It's like,
yeah. Well, and they appear and disappear into the background, right? It's very odd looking after a while.
no, I don't mind the little things, but you can sometimes make a hat, like put a hat on you or something like that. That I don't mind.
That's fun. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna text
Oh, it's
Jacqueline here.
5:57. Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
I don't know where Jacqueline is.
I'll get a little message to her here.
She didn't message me, so that she was gonna be late. I don't think she even emailed it.
I don't understand. I've got something wrong here. Look at this. That's better.
Hello.
Okay.
How are you? I love you're out. You're looking nice there, Victoria.
Oh, thank you, Carl.
Like, okay, what's going on here? She's thinking, what the heck?
Thank you. How are you?
Good.
Perfect. Nice to see everybody.
Yes.
And I like your hat, Joy. That's beautiful.
Thanks. I've even got little dingly bells, but I don't know if you can hear them.
No.
But I can see you nodding.
Oh, and you didn't see my shirt, I guess.
Oh, perfect.
Rudolph and his little son Rudy, who features in a children's book I wrote.
Oh, really?
Yes, and the shirt has nothing to do with my readings tonight, except that, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a costume in a way, and I'm talking about a costume I had to wear at a Christmas pageant in grade 2 with my reading tonight. So I thought the silly hat would sort of in a roundabout way go with the story.
Yeah, I thought about it. I could have dressed up too, but I didn't.
So next year for sure. I don't want to be the only one.
No, next year I certainly will.
It's Char from Char's Landing here in Port Alberni, wanting to welcome everyone in Zoom. Cameras here, and you can see we've got a few in house. Today's a very important day, big changes. So we're so happy to have the people who are here. And you see, I'm wearing my mask and we've all done our double vax, so we're all very safe. I want to wish you all happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year coming up. This is our 14th, right, Karl? I think we were a year in November. So congratulations to Electric Mermaid Live Reads and to all of you for sticking with us. And I want to, again, thank you all and thank you in advance, Karl and Derek and Jacqueline out there. And Micah is with his mom in Steveston right now. So thanks to everybody and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Char.
Okay, I guess we'll just start. Derek.
Go ahead,
All right, I've lost my mind here. I realized I didn't have my paper. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm really behind. Our MC's been, yeah, Derek is our MC. Welcome, Derek. Sorry.
Thank you, Karl. and welcome everyone. And yeah, it is great to come together at least in whatever way we can right this time of year, and so nice to maybe take this time to just celebrate without featured readers from far away, but just with the people who come to be our regulars here on the Electric Mermaid. So it's really nice to have this time to just really chill and relax and loosen up and share some of our own writing, maybe a little bit longer than normal. That's great. So before we get started, I'll say the usual stuff. First of all, we're zooming to you from beautiful downtown Port Alberni on the unceded territories of the Sishat and the Hepetcheseth First Nation. And we're grateful for them sharing their land with us. And we're grateful to Char for being our Zoom host and hostess with the mostest, and for making everything run so smoothly here. And for Karl, our moderator, who has lined up our readers and keeps us all on track. And for Jackie, wherever she is, I sent her a message, but it didn't look like she's online right now. So maybe something's happened, who knows, but or she'll check in later, we'll see. And Micah, if you're listening, hello to you, man, our photographer in the dark there somewhere. And, grateful for your help in this project as we move forward with Electric Mermaid into 2022. It's hard to believe. I don't know about you folks, but for me, 2021 just has blasted by so fast. And in some ways, I'm not so sad to bid it adieu, and I'm really hoping that 2022 is going to be a much better year in a lot of ways, and we can remain hopeful and see what happens as this next wave comes through, and we watch it subside as they all do, and maybe this will be the one that doesn't get replaced by another wave if we're really lucky. So anyway, welcome to Electric Mermaid. We are all inclusive kind of group here. We come together to share our work with respect and joy for the literary art of writing, of putting words down, and of course hearing them spoken aloud is, I think, the way words were meant to be shared. And so this is really, for me, it's a great kind of venue to have, that once a month at least we can get together and hear each other's work and learn and grow from each other. Really, I think that's a lot of what happens. So without further ado, I'm going to get started here. After I remind you that if you're feeling generous, for those of you out there in Zoom land, that you can spare a little bit of extra money. E-transfer at charslanding.com is always appreciated. Char puts a lot of effort and energy into doing this, and anything we can do to keep the lights on there is always a good thing. So I know I forgot to e-transfer you last month, Char, so I'm going to have to double it up this year or this month. So look for it soon. All right, so we're going to start off with our first reader is going to be Joy Sheldon, who has come in costume tonight, and she's gonna share a story that blossomed out of a memory from her childhood with us tonight. So it's all yours, Joy. Take it away.
Yes, thank you for letting me go first from the bad back kid. I can't sit for long periods of time. I start squirming around and get a bit distracting. Sorry about that. So the first one is as I mentioned earlier, it's an excerpt from my memoir, Cowichan Kid, and it's published at Amazon Books. And I took a very short 2 or 3 sentences and made it into a little story. It's called The Embarrassing Christmas Concert, Somno School, North Cowichan, circa 1953. In the 50s, the school concerts were the highlights of our school experience, especially at Christmas. We had one teacher, Mrs. L., an energetic, talented lady who taught grade 3. She did most of the work of organizing the events for concerts 2 or 3 times a year. But at Christmas, she really outdid herself. There was often music, and we sported costumes of varying degrees of inventiveness. And there is one notorious concert whose result I will never forget. I was a short, chubby little kid and always facile with the English language. And if you guys prove to be a really good audience, which you usually are, I might show you at the end of this the picture of that short, chubby little kid. And I was quite facile with the English language, even at a young age. As a matter of fact, here is a poem I wrote, possibly for that very concert, and of which I am duly proud, seeing as how I was only about 6 or 7 when I wrote it. And listen for the most brilliant rhyme that you've ever heard. It's called Santa's Journey. Every year, Christmas night, Santa Claus begins his flight over rooftops, over spires, over trees and telephone wires. In his sleigh, a pack of toys for all good little girls and boys. He fills the stockings right up tight and then departs through the night. And I thought my rhyming of spires and wires was absolutely inspired. Later, I was in a play at Somno School wherein I played the part of a doctor. I was so proud of myself. I was wearing a white lab coat and sporting an actual stethoscope around my neck, both borrowed from a local doctor. Unfortunately, I can't remember a single word from that play. However, I do remember one notorious Christmas concert of which the single line is burned into my memory forever. I believe I was only in grade 2 and chubby for my age, enthusiastic as most little kids are. My mother had simply been told to dress me all in brown and put my hair on top of my head, preferably in braids. So she duly outfitted me in my one and only shorty brown skirt and long sleeve matching top. Then she stuffed my chubby legs into the dreaded dark brown cotton leggings. Boy, did those son of a guns itch. I remember pulling at them uncomfortably most of the night. But in spite of discomfort, I was determined to be a hit. At the appointed time, I appeared at the school, my whole family in tow, and a host of other parents and students of mixed ages in attendance. My mother was an invalid, so Mrs. L had arranged for another kind parent to sew my costume. It consisted of a lot of brown crepe paper and some suspicious lengths of wire. I, of course, did not know this. On arrival at the school, I was instructed to go into a back room where the kindly parent would help me to don her inventive creation. I don't remember there being a dress rehearsal. Maybe they were afraid the costume was so fragile that I might wreck it. So I had no idea what exactly I would look like or what I would represent. On the appointed night, I trotted into the back, cooperative and ready to be fitted into my mystery costume. To my utter astonishment, it was a round, dark brown affair, kind of squashed at the top and looked like a giant pumpkin. I was instructed to put my arms up as this huge chocolate brown, cage-like thing was put over top of me. It was held on my shoulders with either cloth or leather straps. At the very last, a large sprig of holly was pinned into the top of my hair. I don't remember being very nervous. I was too little to be nervous. But imagine my astonishment when I boldly waddled onto the stage. Somebody picked me up and plopped me squarely down into the center of a large table. I was admonished to sit with your legs crossed, sweetie, and don't move. As the curtain opened, many of the parents wore grins and tried to politely smirk behind their hands. Some of the children were not so polite. Titters and guffaws were heard. However, undaunted, the budding actor in me came to the fore. My mother later averred that I belted out my one and only line with pure gusto, excellent diction, and so loud that I could have been heard in Nanaimo. The line was, "Hurrah for the plum pudding upon the table." And if you don't believe me, I'll show you a picture of the little plum pudding. Not in costume, unfortunately. And it is in the front of Cowichan kit. And that's chubby little me in the with the white blouse sitting on the end in the grade 1 photo from Cowichan kit. And that was also Somano School. And my second reading is somewhat shorter. It's from Hoopy, I'm a GRG. I hope you can see the picture of my little wags of grandkids mugging for the camera. So I put it in the front. And of course, it's also a very short Christmas story called Christmas Chaos. Just over 10 years ago, my then husband and I took on the tough challenge of raising my 2 little grandkids. Our friends thought we were crazy to give up snowbird delights and other freedoms. Sanity too? Well, we did. In spite of all the sacrifices, we decided that we're in it for the long haul. But there was one Christmas when we almost reconsidered. And if you folks like this story, you know who you also have to thank for it is Derek Hanebury, because Derek did a partial edit. He helped me do a partial edit of the whole book. And I think he did a brilliant job. Anyway, on with the story. The toilet's plugged again. Merry Christmas. My husband shrieking from the head. What the heck did the little XXYYZZs put in it this time? General answers, I don't know. Another yell. Where's that thick old brown towel we always use to place around the toilet so that it doesn't leak over nearby carpeting? He gets everything set and tries a tentative flush. Minor flood. Oh, this is just great. And we've got company coming for Christmas dinner later. And for the past 2 days, we've had the worst snowfall in years. Plus, we only have 1 bathroom in the house and only 1 toilet. Tries our old and well-worn toilet plunger. Doesn't work. Tries a different plunger, which he borrows from the neighbor. It doesn't work either. Trudges to the shed in the snow to get the snake. No go. Grumbles, groaning and wrenching. The kids watch from the doorway, fascinated. Last time, Grandpa had to break the seal, take off the toilet and haul it outside. Still more trudging and griping. This time it's to hook up the garden hose and haul it in the high-up bathroom window. Oh no, there goes my beautiful Christmas window ledge display. Have to grab it quick before it ends up in the toilet too. He blasts the toilet with water. No dice. The kids are now hanging onto the door frame, heads craned with gleeful expressions on their faces. Years ago when I built the house, the plumber had to temporarily install a white one. 6 months later, my lovely peach creation arrived to match its complementary tub and basin. It was an Elger Donegal elongated peach bisque toilet. Be very careful, hun. 1 crack in this thing and I'll never be able to replace it. I haven't seen a colored toilet anywhere for about 20 years. He hikes the massive thing out the door in spite of the snow. He has set up large wooden blocks at the side of the house. Kurt is 6'3", so setting it up high takes the strain off his back. It also gives the hose more whooshing power, to quote the kids. He places said toilet on top, a bit wobbly like a pink leaning Tower of Pisa. The kids race outside, I with the camera. He flushes it repeatedly with the hose. Camera at the ready, we take a picture of Grandpa, foot up on the side of the toilet like a big game hunter. Trusty but dangerous nozzle in his hand, flushing it into submission with the garden hose. Out poops a suspicious stream of Matchbox toys, pun intended. Our little entourage follows him triumphantly back into the house as he lugs in the monster and reinstalls it just minutes before our Christmas company arrives. P.S. Guess what our old neighbor got from us for a Christmas present on Boxing Day? a new toilet plunger, which does work, just in case we have to borrow it from him again next Christmas. Merry Christmas.
That was even better than I remembered it.
And I didn't change the edit. That was your editing.
Okay, yeah, I'd forgotten about it.
Well, I thank you for that, Derek. And all the inspiration you've given me. You're a very inspiring teacher.
Well, I don't claim anything because you're the one doing the hard work. You're doing the writing. Yeah, I just
Actually, I find it fun. I don't really find it, mostly I don't find it hard work at all.
No, I'm the same way. I'm never
fun.
happier than when I'm lost in a story or a poem or whatever I'm working on, and everything else disappears. Yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. That's what keeps us going back to it over and over again, right? Yeah. Super. Thank you so much, Joy, and all the best for the season. And hopefully you're back. I'll let you hang around for the rest of the night. And if you have to lay down and listen from afar, we'll understand. No worries. All right. So our next reader is going to be Kathy from Gibson's, Kathleen Vance. And are you going to share a Christmas story with us,
I
Kathy?
unmute. No.
Okay. No worries.
Okay. No. All right, but it does take place in the 1920s. All right, it's called, all right. You want to meet 'em all? Billy asked Ann and Mars. My Aunt Flossie's a gangster's mall. At least that's what my dad says. We could go to her house after school on the trolley. Wow, I've only seen gun malls in the movies. Let's go, Mars. You mean your aunt is a gangster's girlfriend? Mars asked Billy. Are you sure it's all right? She's my mother's older sister. I'm allowed to visit as long as Eddie, that's the gangster, is not there. So what are we waiting for? Asked Ann. Well, isn't that the cat's pajamas, Billy? You turning up at my door, Aunt Flossie shrieked. It's the aunt's pants, Billy answered back. Nah, it's the bee's knees, Aunt Flossie shrieked again. Or is it the tiger's spots, she added. Applesauce, it's the cat's meow, Billy said. Unless you still got that Pekingese dog. Dogs don't like no cats. That reminds me, Billy, I was just about to feed Oopsie Whoopsie. Now you and your friends, and you haven't introduced me yet, Billy. We'll have to sit down here quietly. We don't want Oopsie Whoopsie to get the heebie-jeebies and upchuck his food, now do we? Flossie went to another room to get the dog. While Aunt Flossie was gone, Billy, Ann, and Mars each chose one of the big chairs with the soft velvet cushions to sit in. Don't look at the ceiling, Billy told them. Ann and Mars immediately looked at the ceiling. It's covered with naked people, Ann said. I told you not to look. They're not naked people, Mars said. They're Roman gods and goddesses. Look, there's Diana, goddess of the hunt, with her bow and arrows. She's even got a stag, a deer. There's Poseidon with his great big pitchfork, said Billy. That's not a pitchfork, Ann said. No, it's called a trident, said Mars. How did they get those statues up there, Ann wanted to know. They're not really statues. They're flat on the back. The workers made them and stuck them up there, Billy explained. They must have had a really big ladder, Ann said. I really, really like them, said Mars. Just then Aunt Flossie came back into the room with her dog. These are my friends, Ann and Mars, Aunt Flossie, Billy told her. Pleased to make your acquaintance, and this is Oopsie Whoopsie. Aunt Flossie lifted the Pekingese up onto her lap and waved his paw to say hello to the two girls. Then she opened a small store-bought jar of mushed up food that was made to be fed to babies and started feeding the dog with a spoon. Mars saw that Aunt Flossie was all dressed up with a fox stole, a kind of cape, over a yellow dress made of silk with 2 rows of pleats at the bottom, and she even wore yellow silk stockings. Her hair was short in a million tiny waves and the same color as the dog's. And she smelled like so many flowers it made Anne sneeze. I'm sorry, were you just going out? Mars asked her. Aunt Flossie looked puzzled. But then as she looked down at her fox stole and dress, she understood and said, oh no, I don't have no little ragamuffin like Billy to take care of. I'm not like his mother, bless my little sister. So no house dresses for me. Anne kept staring at the fox stole around Billy's aunt's shoulders. The stole looked just like a fox. It had shiny, beady eyes and a tail that was in its mouth. Aunt Flossie said to Anne, you can touch it if you wanna. Just don't scare Oopsie. Ain't it soft? I just love the way they made it so it fits together in the front, real natural like. Anne had never felt anything so soft, nor had she ever heard anyone with a voice as high as Billy's Aunt Flossie's. She was either squeaking like a really tiny kid or shrieking when she got excited, but she had never seen anyone feed a dog baby food either, all the while dressed up like for a party. When Anne sat back down, Mars couldn't help but whisper into her ear, I don't believe in wearing dead animals. Billy heard Mars and said, my mother would kill to have a dead animal like that to wear. Anne tried to make peace. Maybe it died of rabies. I had a friend whose family had a turkey farm and a fox bit their dog. The fox had rabies, and everyone in the family, even the kids, had to have these horrible rabies shots or they would all have died foaming at the mouth with spit looking like soap suds coming out of their mouths, just like in the old westerns on TV, in the movies. So maybe this fox had rabies and died naturally. I don't believe in turkey farms either, Mars said. Just then the door banged open and shut. Oopsie Whoopsie yelped and jumped out of Aunt Flossie's lap and dived under the chair so that only his little pointed head was poking out. The jar of baby food and a spoon went flying across the room. Flossie raced toward the door and Billy, Ann, and Mars tried to bury themselves in their chairs. Eddie had come home. What are you doing here? My nephew's here with his little friends. Put that gun away. You'll scare the kids, Flossie shrieked. I gotta lay low. The heat is after me, Eddie growled. What did you and your gang of chumps get up to this time? Rob a bank? How did you guess? Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and that's a prayer. How many times have I told you if a guy could get rich robbing banks, Rockefeller and his gang of big cheeses would have been robbing them instead of owning them? Were you behind the door when the good Lord handed out the brains? Flossie shrieked. It's my home, ain't it? I gotta lay low like I said. No, it ain't. It's my house, and I got the deed with my name on it to prove it. The deed says Florence Enzensberger, not Eddie Chump Lowlife. I've been working on that telephone switchboard since I was 14. But you don't know where real money comes from, do you? It was my clams, my dough that bought this house. So scram, get out of my house. And Flossie shoved Eddie towards the door. But Eddie still had hold of the gun. He shouted, with you and the kids here, the coppers won't dare come near me. Eddie moved to grab Flossie and the three kids when suddenly, out of nowhere, Oopsie leaped into the air and bit Eddie in the mouth. Eddie dropped the gun and with both hands held on to his bleeding mouth. He was praying that both lips were still there. Flossie froze. Oopsie Whoopsie dived back under the chair. And Billy, Ann, and Mars covered their faces with their hands and buried themselves even deeper into their chairs, afraid of what would happen next. That dog better not give me rabies, Eddie said, barely able to speak with his mouth bleeding like that. Suddenly, there was a loud banging at the door. It's the police. Open up. We've surrounded the house. I think this is what you're looking for, Flossie shrieked, pointing at Eddie, who was still howling. And take that piece, that gun with you, please. It's scaring the kids. You, grab some air, the police ordered Eddie, and Eddie put up his hands. Look, the blood's running down his kisser. Good work, oopsie whoopsie, Aunt Flossie shrieked. After the police left with Eddie, Flossie turned to the kids. Eddie always was a chump. I love him, but that don't make him not a chump. Now, kiddos, how about a drink? I can make Shirley Temples. That's just soda water, Pop, you know. I don't serve no giggle water to kids. I can make you some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, too. I just love having you for a visit, Aunt Flossie squeaked. The end.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Kathy. That was great. I love that line, grab some air. Beautiful. Wow. I can just see kids listening to that and just their imaginations are just going to go wild. Just be so engaged in there. Fabulous. All right, David is going to take the screen over now, I guess. And we got you down for 12 minutes and 30 seconds, David. So, you know, if you're 45, it's okay. We won't cut you off. Oh, you're muted again there. Hang on. Can you unmute there, David?
See, I don't have
There
a
you
mic.
are.
Okay,
There
okay,
we go.
good. Here we
Okay.
go. Fraser Valley. Angus leaned out of the street door and spat for luck, but his spit looped and dropped onto the boot scraper. Dust and leaves thrown at the house by a storm blustering in over Sumas Mountain and down onto Ruskin made Angus squint and pull back inside. It was getting colder. He pulled the heavy door shut and knocked the difficult latch back into place. Delphine called from the scullery, "Are you not going to walk this morning?" Her stooped back did not turn as she continued to push and twist at the heavy sheets in the stone sink. Angus felt his chin and decided not to shave today. Too cold. He turned around, wondering what to do next. He turned back. "Not yet, later. Will you be hanging those sheets out this morning? Wind feels like it's veering to blow from the Cascades now. Rain most likely." Delphine straightened her back and massaged one shoulder. "Here, strong man, help me feed these sheets through the wringer, and then we'll carry them out and hang them. I can't wait while the wind makes up its mind." She smiled at him and tightened her apron with its periwinkle squares. "You old donkey, you can wring a wet sheet, can't you? It'll loosen up your arms for chopping wood. Come on." An hour later, Angus's hands fumbled with a splitting axe as he fought with iron-hard logs that he'd salvaged from the Agostino's apple orchard. Even the juniper he'd gleaned from the right-of-way clearings when the new electricity pylons were erected across the valley, that too was obstinate under his axe, and he loved it. Delphine once said, "There's a ton of cottonwood slash right here for you where you live." No, thank you, cottonwood, forget it. Angus believed the hardest wood, split by axe, not a saw, warmed his house the best. Last year, the new Winnipegger, a Russian guy, widower, who'd bought Frau Buchwalder's house on the crossroads by McRae's food store and bought it for too much from the old lady's greedy son. The Winnipegger was some kind of artist. He had spotted Angus one day struggling with a bundle of juniper logs and had offered to buy them on the spot. He told Angus, as though imparting a secret, that juniper was good for fires because of its scent. Angus had held his tongue, as though he hadn't cooked sausages over juniper campfires at his father's sheep camps when he was a child. For a moment he thought of those high summer meadows before his father got ill and his sheep had been requisitioned and turned into mutton for the soldiers in the Great War. At least the new man had paid all that Angus had demanded for the juniper wood, and Angus was fond of $1. When the firewood was stacked, Angus felt warm enough to take his walk. "I'm going down to the tavern to see Basile," he called into the kitchen. "See how he is." Angus took the shepherd's staff from the corner by the back door, and its iron tip clattered briefly on the granite doorstep. "Why, take that thing," called Delphine. "You're no shepherd, and there's nothing wrong with your legs." Angus slammed the door behind him. It wasn't really his stick. It had been his grandfather's. His grandfather had been shepherd on 2 of the Hendrickson farms at the start of the century, and Angus's father too had tried to carry on the tradition and the stick, keeping a small herd of his own and some pigs on a small holding outside Ruskin. At 14, the young Angus had felt that stick on his back once when he was secretly teaching himself to herd sheep with snarly old Poilu. Wake up, boy, look at the valley, look at the towns growing like weeds, see? Cars, new buildings, shops, people in new clothes. Look, that's for you. This game is over. No more shepherds. That'll be fairy tales. Get back to your school books. Angus's 30 years in the offices of the Highway Department had brought him promotions for diligence and reliability, eventually making Angus principal clerk of roads for the whole of the Fraser Valley. Now in retirement, Angus sometimes walked with the staff up in the hills, herding the sheep of his imagination. Today he would take it down the village street. Why not? Old Angus chortled to himself, a fake shepherd with a pot belly, no harm in dreaming. Basile Cloutier had not yet arrived at the Ruskin Tavern. Daniel at the counter grinned when Angus came in. "Ah, Mr. Shepherd, how is your flock today?" Angus scowled, his little affectation punctured. "Cheeky devil, didn't your father teach you manners? A small brandy, Daniel. Have you seen old Basile yet?" Daniel shook his head and beckoned Angus closer. "Not today, but I can tell you something you didn't know about that old bruiser. Basile is a fibber, and I've caught him out." Basile had been a giant of a man in his youth and middle age. A simple man, perhaps, big in muscle, not so big in wits and words. While Angus had prospered gently in the office of the Highways Department, for those same 30 years, Basile Cloutier had dug the Fraser Valley's ditches and built its bridges and raked its asphalt and broken its rocks and achieved not a certificate, but a cruel twist to his spine and a tremor in his right arm by the time he was 60 and could no longer work. Daniel tapped Angus's wrist. "That mountain goat head on the wall, the one Basile says his father shot, it's phony. The Engstrom brothers were in here whitewashing over the weekend, and the younger one managed to drop the head. Bang! I picked it up, and a piece of the neck hung loose from the board it was on. There was a brown paper label in there, glued in. Guess what? It said Ottawa, Ottawa the city of all places, and stamped 1890 Levine's taxidermy on a label. He never shot it, Basile's dad. Must have bought it someplace. Basile has been telling people for years how his dad was a great hunter up in the Cascades someplace, shooting goats. Liar, what a liar, Basile and his dad too. Most likely his dad lied because Basile's too simple to make it up. I'm going to have some fun with him when he comes in." Angus drank his brandy and looked around the bar. "Is your father here, Daniel?" The barman shrugged and spread his hands. "Hospital again. Went back in on Friday." Angus said, "Too bad, or I'd have him here beside me while I teach you the facts of life. Give me another brandy, a large. It's getting cold out here. And keep your gob shut till I've finished." Something in the tone of his voice, quiet as it was, made 2 drinkers at the far table stop their card game and look over. Angus tapped the zinc-topped bar with 1 finger. 1. Basile did more hard work by the time he was 16 than you've done in your life, you at that college and here in your father's tavern. 2. He never earned much, but what he did earn with his hands has come over this bar, he rapped it hard, into your family's till. And 3, your father may not have told you, but I will, what your family and this bar and this village owes to Basile Cloutier, whether you call him simple or not. Cigarette, Daniel. Give me one of those players. Matches. Daniel pulled a bar stool to the end of the bar and was obliged to hear the story of 1920, when logging companies were hiring again and paying good wages. But of course, when the thaw came each year, the spring runoff, logging camps would be closed, the fallers laid off. They always headed for Vancouver, down from Lytton, Hope, Rosedale, Harrison Lake. Some were gypsies. Not all gypsies are bad. Some were displaced, demobilized soldiers. What do I know? Angus waved his cigarette impatiently. Your mum and dad were running the bar then, right? You would have been, what, 2 years old at most, 1920? Laid off and paid off with their Stanfields full of money, these men would be on the road again, young guys on a spree. Some little towns, they'd march in, empty the bakery, the butchers, eat and drink out in the street, right there under the willows by the river. Eat, drink, fight, sleep, break a few windows. Old Bergman, the mayor, he hid in his house. What was he to do? Your father, said Angus, your good father served a couple of those guys who marched in here with their cork boots all over that nice floor. Brandy, they wanted the best brandy. They threw the money on the bar, just like that. Banknotes everywhere. Give us brandy, cigars, pig's feet, pickled eggs, whatever. Fine, so far, fine. Then these guys began to sing and shout and talk dirty to the women walking past. Your mother, Daniel, she was upstairs, probably looking after you, with all the noise and the trouble in the street too. What is a shopkeeper, a businessman to do? Your father, me, we're just men. We're not heroes. We're not expected to be heroes. He ran the bar, I ran the highways office, so we were not heroes, your father and me. Yes, I was here, that's what I can tell you. Daniel called over his shoulder to his sister Marie to serve the two tourists who had just stepped gingerly into the bar. Go on, Angus. Basile was here too, but he'd been downstairs in the cellar. What would he have been then, 24, 25 about? He'd come in earlier for a drink on his way home from work. He always came in the back door because he'd not cleaned up yet. Black he was, sweat and sawdust and bark all over him from the shake mill. And he'd gone down to the cellar to move some barrels for your father. Basile was like that since he was a kid. Anything big and heavy, Basile offered. Basile loved to take it on. Not books, okay, not reading and writing and so on. Heavy stuff, that was his delight. In those days, it gave him pride. Now he has that twisted back and he can't lift anymore and still can't read. Not such a great life for him now, perhaps, except he enjoys a drink and the company, right? So these two guys, the Fallers, thick leather belts, you know, they'd fight with their leather belt, big brass buckles, take your eye out, and bush axes. They'd carry a little bush axe on a strap from their belt on their stag pants. Do you know that name, stag pants, they called them? Hems a foot above the boots. I've heard stuff, not here, not in this village, but in Hope, down there, daring each other, dangerous tricks with their axes during spring runoff, and with the drinking, oh, it got dangerous. So these two were getting high and mighty, and your good father was being polite. He had you and your mother upstairs to think of. I was wondering what the hell to do. Your dad looks at me and I look at him, and these two guys, they were figuring out they could do pretty much what they wanted. And then Basile comes up from the cellar. These two, they'd never seen him before. Strangers are taken aback by that scar of his, right? Half the skin on his face, all twisted by that scar. We all knew it was from childhood, that thing the doctors had to cut out when he was a kid. Strangers would think he'd been in a knife fight or been shot. Basile, not so sharp, you'd think, a bit slow, you'd think. Basile looks around the bar and he catches on right away, just like that. And he suddenly says to your pa, is that the Applejack you want lifted down? Applejack, Basile always called it. Distilled cider, homemade moonshine, really. Is that the Applejack you wanted? And he points to a great earthenware jug up on the rack behind the counter. Must have been 5 gallons, a brute of a thing. So Basile reaches up and with one hand hooks 3 fingers round the neck and lifts it like a feather down to the counter and sets it down quiet as a fly landing, all the time looking at these two tough characters. Then Basile turns to your dad and says, Mr. Langton, may I have a glass for myself and 2 for our guests here? Your father sets 3 little liquor glasses on the bar. So help me God, Basile with just one hand tilts this great earthenware jug and ever so slowly pours one perfect glass of Applejack right to the brim, just so, not a single drop spilled. With his other hand, he lifts that glass and drinks the shot in one go. Ah, just right for a thirsty man, he says, and then walks over to those 2 roughnecks, carrying the 2 empty glasses so dainty in his big mitt, and sets them on the table among their mess of spilled beer and pig's feet and cigarette ash. Then Basile says, you 2 fellows look thirsty after your travels. Why not have a little drink before you go on your way? And Basile looks them straight in the eye, not a waver, and with his one forearm out straight like a great oak tree branch, he pours 1, 2 tiny glasses of Applejack up to the brim and not a drop spilled, and the great jug steady in his big fist, and not a tremor or a twitch anywhere in the man. And those 2 roughnecks, they quickly drank their glasses in silence, and they stood up in silence, and they nodded thank you very much to your good father, and they walked very quietly out into the street, and up past the bakery, and over to their truck on the road to Agassiz or Kent or Mission or wherever the devil took them, but we never saw them again or their friends. Now, Daniel, why did you put that fine mountain goat head back on the wall where it belongs? And if Basil Cloutier says his father shot it up there in our mountains, I tell you that's good enough for me and for anyone else in this village. And when Basil comes in, Mother of God, here he is now at the door. Will you put a glass of whatever he wants on the counter for him, on my account? And think how lucky you are to be serving him.
Yeah. Legendary, man, legendary. That's fabulous. That needs to be a cornerstone in your collection, I think. Yeah, it could be. What was the title of that one?
Didn't have a title. Fraser Valley.
Fraser Valley. Okay, well, we'll work on the title, but it can be that and other stories. Wonderful. Thank you so much, man. All right, Bill Engleson's our next reader, and he's coming to us from Denman Island, of course, and always great to have you on board, Bill. And I love just listening to you read anyway. You know, if you ever wanted another career, I know you're retired and everything, but you could do podcasts real easy. Or be a DJ, I don't know. But you need to unmute yourself there, Bill. No, down the bottom left there. You might have to go into full screen to be able to see it. Yeah. There we go.
Okay. So this is definitely not a Christmas piece. It's an excerpt from the middle of the book as it is now, and it's a young Métis kid wandering the area of Burnaby New West border a few decades ago, and this is a bit of his story. His name's Gordy. Across the noisy main highway above the tracks stood a huge walled fortress. As he walked the tracks, the stone structure looked out towards the bend in the river. It was imposing, a powerful building shaped like a castle. It was, of course, a prison. The walls of the BC pen were high, and the whole place stank of torture and loss. Trucks and a few cars were speeding by, speeding, no doubt, to avoid any chance of being beckoned by those ominous walls. Eventually, he thought better of being on the tracks and shifted up to the gravel walkway that edged a side road that suddenly appeared diverging off the busy highway. Excuse me. It was close to noon. He had worked up a walker's appetite, but had no money. He was excited to discover this back road. It seemed to be a truck route, which made walking alongside it a bit more precarious. In less than 10 minutes, he had reached the back of a row of buildings that fronted Columbia Street. In no time, a sidewalk and a giant car parkade appeared. He could smell food, but he couldn't see any restaurants on the street he was on. A signpost said was Front Street. The restaurants must be one street up, he figured. Having no money, it didn't matter. He continued along the sidewalk, glancing in through the store windows. Most of the businesses seemed to sell old furniture. At one point, however, he came upon a larger store full of fish nets, knives in the window, and all sorts of hunting and fishing gear further back. The wealth of gear impressed him, and he continued looking in, lamenting now that he not only didn't have money for lunch, but also that he couldn't buy any of this wonderful equipment. Money was important, especially if you lived in the city. His brief, tragic stay with his mother in Winnipeg had taught him that. As he thought of her, he felt the air go out of him. A lump descended into his belly like some undigested slab of meat. At that moment, all the pleasure that walking had brought him, only to deliver him to this store that he could not enter, for he had no money, seemed foolish. He had been walking to escape his poverty. He had been walking to escape his sorrow. He had been walking so that he could find some place where he belonged, if only for a few uninterrupted minutes. He now knew almost for certain that he couldn't escape by walking, that he didn't know how to find out where he belonged. He was afraid he belonged nowhere. His face was as close to the store window as it could get, nose pressed up against the glass briefly. He stepped back a couple of inches. As he did, a man walked out of the store, whose window he was peering in. Their eyes met. The man was taller than he was, with thinning brown hair, a long nose, an unshaven face, wearing a plaid shirt that looked dirty and old jeans that had dark stains on them. And there was a smell, an unpleasant, off-putting smell of shit and menace. "It's a good store, kid," the man said to him. "Lots of cool stuff. You ought to go in." He wasn't sure what to say. On his many walks in the past couple of months, no one had ever really up and talked to him. A few had yelled for him to move on, but those moments were rare. But no conversational overture until now. He decided to keep quiet, and no doubt the man would be on his way. "I buy all my knives here," the man continued talking. "They have great knives. Stay sharp a real long time." The man was carrying a package in his arm and gestured it to him, as if to emphasize his knife purchase. "Want to see it?" he asked, and before he could process that question, the man opened his package and was flashing his new knife. Someone else rushed outside from the store. "Hey, Willie, you know you're supposed to keep that blade wrapped up." Slightly startled by the interruption, the man, who was named Willie, quickly covered the knife up in its wrappings. You're right, Walt. I was just showing this here kid." "Fine, Willie. Just not here in the bloody daylight, okay? Wait till you get home, for Christ's sake." "Gotcha, Walt. Sorry. You won't tell Dave, will you?" "I'm not going to tell anybody anything, Willie, especially Dave, as long as you keep it covered. See ya." The owner or the clerk, or whoever he was, went back inside the store. "I should have known," he said, more to himself than to Gordy. "I can be pretty stupid sometimes." In his brief life, no adult had ever rebuked himself for being stupid. It just wasn't done. Maybe women might beat themselves up, but men should never slam themselves. This Willie guy had some problems. Still, everyone did, he supposed. Taking what seemed like a safe direction, he asked his new acquaintance, "Who is Dave?" "Dave's my brother, my younger brother. He thinks he's in charge of me. Everybody thinks he's my boss." "Maybe he is. He's a smart one, that's for sure." He paused and demanded, "You sure you don't know Dave?" "No," he had to admit. "I don't even know you." "That's right," Willie acknowledged. "You don't, do you? I'm Willie. Who are you?" Gordy Dumont." "Willie and Gordy. Sounds like a song, eh?" Willie observed. He had no comment. The man, Willie, repeated "Willie and Gordy" a couple of times, perhaps seeking some lost and mysterious tune. He didn't think the lyric would make much of a song in this squeaky adult shirt it couldn't sing. "You from around here, Gordy?" he asked. "Just moved out here." "Where are you from?" "Manitoba." "Never been there. It's in the east, right?" He nodded at the obvious question. Of course, Manitoba was east of here. There was nothing west except the sea, as far as he knew anyway. "My mom was born in Saskatchewan. You ever seen that place?" Gordy nodded again and then added, "We drove through it on our way out here in June." "You're lucky. I've never been much of anywhere." And he paused to consider something. "Once I was in love. A pen pal, you know. Anyway, I went on a road trip through the US of A. Took a bus. Loved it. Left the driving to them. I mean, they knew the hell where they were going, and I sure didn't." Willie's recollection just sat there. He had nothing to counter with. He had never had a real girlfriend, let alone a pen pal, whatever that. Sorry. Yeah. He never had a, let alone a pen pal, whatever that was. Of course, there had been Cecile. He decided to tell a small fib. "I've never had a girlfriend," he admitted. It was close to the truth. There had been his flirtation with Cecile Lafreniere when he was 13, and she was about the same. Maybe she had been a couple of years younger. It was all kissing and touching and nothing much else. It had sort of been fun. As he briefly wondered what Cecile was doing back in Manitoba, Willie said, "Me neither. Girls never liked me much that way." It was looking like their reservoir of things to talk about was drying up. He was finding that talking to this guy was tiring. He had always found talking hard work. Talking to this friendly, slightly strange fellow was especially arduous. "Well, I got to be going, kid. Got things to do today. See ya." The man called Willie crossed the sidewalk and got into a white Ford van parked at the curb. He started his engine and began to pull out. Hesitated, backed into his about-to-be vacated spot, turned the engine off, rolled down the passenger window, and beckoned them over. "You wouldn't like to work at my place, would you?" "For money?" Gordy asked. "Of course for money. What else is there to work for?" Doing what? He had never ever worked for wages before and was not all that familiar with being an employee. Stuff, lots of stuff. Do you know anything about cars? I buy old junkers and strip them for parts. You could do that, I bet. There's always stuff to do on my farm. He weighed his options. He knew at some point the school would squeal on him about always being away, about how he just took off. If he was able to counter that rebuke with money for the family, his dad might not be so angry. This guy was offering him a real job. Where is your farm? Close, just in Coquitlam. 10 minutes tops, if the traffic's not too heavy. Should be fine this time of day. I'll even drive you home, and I'll fry up some homemade pork sausage for lunch. You look hungry. The offer of food, money, and transportation sounded too good to be true for him. Sure, he said, I'm starving. Hop in then, said the man called Willie. He got in the pickup and they drove off. Just from hearing Willie's promise of fresh homemade sausages, the mere mention of them, he could almost taste the sizzling pork links as they headed towards his farm.
Oh dear, I think I know where that's going.
Yeah, you might have guessed.
Yes, my goodness. Oh boy, yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, Bill, and best of the season to you out there on Denman Island. And hope we'll see you again in 2022. Back here at the Electric Mermaid. We're going back to Char's Landing now, live at the Char's Landing where Dean Lamont is standing by. Hello there, Dean.
Hi there. How are you doing?
How are you? I'm doing really well. Good to see you again.
Good hosting. Nice to see you too.
Are you going to do some a Ned story for us tonight?
Kind of, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Take it away.
All right. Thanks. It would be nice, just as an aside, it would be nice to see a few more people here. It's a little bit empty here, and the security is well in place, and Char has decorated the place nicely and everything. So see if you can't make it down sometime. Yay. Anyway, I used to do worm composting and helped run the city of Vancouver, you know, making worm bins and workshops and all that stuff. So anyway, this is a farcical piece, but I do have considerable background when it comes to annelids. Hi, my name is Ned. I'm with the Earthworm Liberation Front. We advocate for earthworms wherever they may be oppressed and endangered. Yes, and today is the day we will liberate several thousand earthworms. These annelids were being kept in small plastic bins in an unheated cabin. The protagonist had visions of starting an earthworm business to cash in on the, shall we say, reproductive proclivities of these aptly named red wigglers. In reality, these earthworms were sorely neglected, which is why ELF, the Earthworm Liberation Front, stepped in. And now Ned was poised to end the earthworm's suffering. Earlier that day, Ned had hooked up his trailer and picked up a load of maple leaves from one of his apartment gardening customers. Then, oh, wicked speed, he went to up Falls Road to Pooh Corner, to the big pile of steaming horse dew from the stables on Malabar. There, he pitchforked in a load of horse manure right on top of the leaves. Ned reasoned that the a la carte menu of leaves and dew would heat up like the devil and encourage the wigglers to breed like rabbits. No, like flies. The microbial activity of the horse manure, plus the proximity of so many potential partners, would make the earthworms would perhaps guarantee worms going end to end as worms will do. Willy-nilly, with abandon. Now, when God was creating the universe, she could see past, present, and future all at once, being God. She could see rutting moose, charging, speeding locomotives, Romeo and Juliet, the myriad problems created by having males and females. So she created the bisexual earthworm, possessing both sperm and eggs, all in one neat phallic package. Ha ha, she said, that should do it. But alas, Ned thought, gazing in the morning mist at his elephantine composter, not content with ho-hum self-fertilization, the amorous annelids, when not eating, were hunting for suitable partners, or going end to end, as worms will do. Now, the Elfers, the Earthworm Liberation Front, were in mystic communion with Wilma, the mother of all worms. She was there for every earthworm in the sea. She was there when the first earthworms crawled onto land. She had taught Ned a special sacred song, which he and the Elfers always sang when liberating earthworms. So, tipping the eager, squirming worms into the steaming bin, he sang, happy worms, oh, we're such happy worms, how we love to squirm in our cozy beds. And then, now that we've been fed, we'll make more happy worms. Oh, you can always find a friend in the wormy West End who wants to go end to end and make more happy worms. Oh, Josephine, is that you? It's been such a long time. Jerry, it is. I can remember when, ... parentheses, parental discretion advised. Oh, Josephine, don't stop. Jerry, it's been so long. Thank you.
You're always a surprise, Dean. I'll never know where you're gonna go. Thank you for that, man, and happy holidays to you. Okay, our next reader is Victoria Roscoe-Roumamis, and Victoria is on the Zoom channel with us. And what are you going to read for us tonight, Victoria? Oh, you're muted, my dear. Still muted.
Keep trying
there
to.
You go.
On the wrong thing. Yeah, so I'm just going to go back a little bit in time to winter and Christmas, long time ago. This is winter evening on the farm. I grew up on a farm. So winter evenings and the cows are in for the night, securely fastened by the neck with a collar made of chain. When I think of this scene, I can still hear the sound of the chains clinking as the cows moved their heads pulling at the hay, together with the sound of their chewing and their powerful breathing. I could feel the warmth of their body heat. The cowshed was cozy at this time of the year. I entered via the root house, where the smell of animal feed and mangles, English word for turnips, greeted me. The feed was stored in large wooden bins. The mangles piled on the floor next to the large iron shredder. I love to shred mangles, holding the wooden handle that made a clunking sound as it did its work. The mangles were fresh from the fields and had a strong, earthy smell. I would slide open the wooden door to enter the cow's domain. The warmth and soft smell of cow and hay reached my nostrils. I reached out to stroke the neck of one of them, looked into her big eyes, admired the long, long eyelashes. I put my hand under her mouth and feel the rough sandpaper tongue lick my hand. I was comfortable here, and the sounds of the cows brought me peace. I went to the far corner of the shippen and climbed the vertical ladder up to the hayloft, where the sweet smell of fresh hay filled the air. It was also cozy warm here, due to the hay's insulation and the rising heat of the cows below. When I was younger, I used to play many different games up here with my friends. But tonight I threw down a bale of hay, where it landed with a thud on the concrete floor below. Chains jangled as the startled cows raised their heads. I took hold of the 2 strands of baling string that bound in and encompassed the hay. I carried it out through the sliding the door back into place, crossed the root house, closing the double door as I left. Then I carried the bale across the yard in the crisp night air to the stable at the rear end of the farm for my horse's evening meal. I was welcomed by a gentle whinny from my loyal friend Jupiter. I opened the hay bale and placed a portion in the hay rack in his loose box. I put my arms around his strong neck, breathing in the familiar horsey smell, which to this day is sweet perfume to my senses. Jupiter was my life and pleasure as we trained daily for the equestrian events we took part in. In downtime, when he lay in the straw for his snooze, I would lie next to him with my head on his shoulder. We were a team and the closest of companions. Oops, not doing that very well. Okay, and the next one is it's Christmas. It's Christmas a long time ago. But Christmas is a mix of nostalgic memories past. Christmas is a mix of nostalgic memories past, pleasant and not so pleasant. I carry traditions from childhood, gathering new ones every year, up to and including the Christmas recently. Christmas is like a rolling stone, always gathering. No other celebration compares with Christmas. Each piece of decoration in my home holds a memory. Every Christmas carol stirs the emotion of my heart as I travel back to my days in Dawsbury Church Choir in the north of England. Many years ago, the rector at this church was the father of Lewis Carroll of Alice in Wonderland fame. It was a large parish, and for 1 week before Christmas, the choir would take their carols out into the crisp night air and descend on the doorsteps of the parishioners' homes. I can still see the choir master tapping his tuning fork on the wall, then pursing his lips as he hummed to give the correct key. The parish was a wealthy parish, and some of the larger homes, able to afford maids, invited the choir inside for delicious snacks and drinks. The adults were offered alcoholic beverages. We had a couple of gentlemen choristers who enjoyed several drinks at each stop. By the end of the evening, these 2 men required a guiding hand to find their way. One of them drove his family home. It was always a surprise that he made it home safely. The caroling was a joyful time, and we young ones certainly had our fun. It was a time not to be missed. My present little nativity scene with its special nostalgic pieces reminds me of the more elaborate one I used to set up on the top of our piano at my childhood home. What have I done here? Oh, I had a battery-lit stable and a light guiding star above, moss and rocks for the mountains, a painted backdrop of the night sky, and of course all the nativity figures were present. It was beautiful, and I do wish I had a photograph of it now. The Royal Mail in England at that time was delivered on Christmas Day. Our mailman rode a bicycle. My father always invited him in for a very stiff drink, and when the postman left, staggering, we would all watch through the window as he tried to mount his 2 wheels. When he eventually did, we watched him wobble left and right down the road, and we all had a good laugh. It was the highlight of the day. Christmases past have not always left happy memories, and although I do not want to recall these days, they somehow always keep tumbling into the present. However, the past few years have built joy in my heart. I thank God for my wonderful friends, my children and my grandchildren, who make the time special. Christmas Eve was and is so special to me now, as 12 friends gathered for a special dinner, but this year we will only be 8 due to COVID. We make our own entertainment, play music and singing carols. On Christmas Day, we gather together again to eat leftovers, then take a walk together. Last year's Christmas Day's walk was especially magical with the snow settled on every tree, fern and pathway in the forest. We marched along singing and laughing together. I love my wonderful friends. This walk reminded me of an exhilarating chase riding my horse at the hunt with foxhounds on Boxing Day when I was young. Sometimes it did snow, and one year I remember the horse brought me home after the hunt because I was so frozen my hands could not hold him back. We arrived home in the farmyard where my father had to lift me off my horse and take me inside for a hot bath, and afterwards a seat by the fire with a hot drink. Yes, Christmas is rather like a spinning top as we spiral through all the past joys and hurts, catching a glimpse of, oh, so many different scenes of Christmas pageants past. In 12 months, we will choose our setting and create our next pageant. So happy New Year to you all, and happy Christmas, and happy holidays.
All the best to you too, Victoria. Thank you for that. Yes. Lots of memories packed into that. That's great. All right, Herb Bryce is going to read to us next, and he's going to share some of his own work, and then also, I guess, some of Micki Findlay's, who couldn't be here tonight. So she passed it along to Herb, and he graciously agreed. We're grateful for that. Herb, take it away, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Which do you want first, me or her?
Your choice.
Okay. We have 2 from Micki. One is a 2-pager and one's longer. So I hope to do justice to them both. And one is called Nothing Is As It Seems. Cold, hard, crunchy, robust ruby gem, dangling high on a serpentine limb, dancing with the autumn breeze, enchanting, enticing, biting. Hollow groans lurch from my belly. Reaching up on tiptoes, I gingerly twist the scarlet orb from its branch. A gnarled leaf clings lifeless. Careful, careful, don't drop it. Never, ever drop it. I know, only too well. You can't always see the bruises, but they're there. Running home, I paused before creeping in through the kitchen door. I must be quiet. I must always be quiet. Staring at my contraband, I begin paring off the smooth red veneer. It lays there, dormant, in a frenzied heap. But for how long? Its facade stripped away, there's no more pretending. I can feel it settling, staring, glaring. The silence frightens me. I know what's coming. Trembling, I cut into the white flesh. It spits at me, stinging my eye. Mistakes are not allowed. Mistakes are never allowed. My hand quivers as I cut faster, faster, faster before it spews its frothy disdain again. Slice, precision, slice, careful, slice. Something catches my eye. Terrified, I look down. A silent scream echoes in my mind. Blood. I should have known. I dared to believe, to hope, to challenge. Tasting bloodied tears, I glanced at my pasty white slices laying there motionless, small, exposed, powerless. But today I fought back. Did I win? For now. Thank you for listening. This one might echo previous themes for the night. Exposed. Nothing can ever prepare you for the unthinkable. I can't recall how old I was, 12 perhaps, when my mother would whisk us away to the iconic Butcharts Gardens, Victoria, BC, to watch live performances in the outer pavilion. My heart would race as the road began to narrow and twist through the dense forest. Almost there. After entering the main gate, we would make our way along a grassy field to find a bench close to the stage. I tingled with goosebumps as bagpipers dressed in red and black regalia would herald in the evening festivities. At sunset, a playful breeze drifted through the crowd as twilight leaves whistled and shimmied to Gaelic melodies. I remember closing my eyes and thinking, this must be what heaven is like. Even now, when I hear Scottish music, I'm transported back to that idyllic time. So when asked to sing at the upcoming Robbie Burns banquet, how could I refuse? I feel proud and honored to be invited to take part in such a prestigious event. But what to wear? A kilt is the obvious choice, but where would I find one in such a remote place as this, Mackenzie, BC, and on such short notice? I suddenly remembered Barbara, a talented seamstress I'd met through a mutual friend. I hold my breath, I dial her number. A jaunty, lilting voice answers, of course I can take that for you, my dear. I have some tartan material I've never used. Let's get you measured. Yes. I exhale a grateful sigh as I hung up the phone. Now I just need to find a song to sing. At the banquet, I dragged my box of sheet music from the bedroom closet, hoping to find a piece written by Robbie Burns. Finally, one stands out in the pile, a favorite of mine. Ye banks and breeze. Perfect. 2 weeks have passed and I haven't heard from my seamstress. The event is only a few days away. Has she forgotten? My pulse starts racing. I pick up the phone. Will she be home? Does she have good news for me? Oh, hello, my dear. I'm so sorry I haven't been in touch. I've been swamped. Oh, no. I have nearly finished your kilt. Don't worry. It'll be done in time, I promise. It's the night of the banquet, and as usual, I have arrived ridiculously early, as I always do before a performance. I rationalized that it helped me feel more in control of the unknown. But what it really does is give me more time to stew in needless anxiety. I find myself repeating the lyrics to the song in my head. while checking and rechecking my watch as I fidget in my new itchy blue-green kilt. Smiling strangers draped in colorful Highland attire begin to pour into the massive banquet hall. A silver-haired couple pause by my table as they gush over how elegant it looks in white linen, red plaid, and candles nested in fresh greenery. I flinch as a shrill wailing sound blasts through the air. I whirl around to see the ceremonial haggis paraded in. Feather-capped bagpipers lead the procession. A hush settles over the crowd as an enormous silver platter is placed at the head table. After grace and a few honorary words from the host, we are served a hearty meal of haggis, neeps, and tatties. As I stare down at my food, I ponder the mystery of what I'm eating. I decide it's probably best I don't know. As dinner plates empty and coffee is being served, I await the host's signal to perform. He is a grinning, bearded man of considerable girth. His lilting Scottish accent makes my heart flutter with nostalgia. Guessing that it must be time for me to sing, my stomach flip-flops as I watch him approach the microphone. I would like to welcome a very special guest who is going to sing for us tonight. Let's give her a hearty round of applause. I return his toothy grin as I rise from my seat. Suddenly I hear a riff. I freeze, confused, afraid to look, but the truth is undeniable. My kilt is lying on the floor in a heap around my ankles. I'm standing in front of hundreds of people in my underwear. Oh, my face feels hot. I can't think. There's no getting out of this, nowhere to hide. I swallow what little pride I have left, reach down to retrieve my clothing and my dignity. Wrap the unfettered kilt tightly around my waist and make my way to the stage as if walking to my execution. I can hear a few muffled giggles coming from somewhere behind me. Never mind, keep walking. I stare out at the sea of wide-eyed faces as I click on the microphone. Except for the occasional snicker, there is a chilling silence, a silence that turns seconds into hours. Suddenly I hear myself saying, well, my goodness, apparently I've lost weight. I guess I should have eaten more haggis. That did it. The room erupts with laughter. I laugh too. I guess I should have eaten more haggis, I repeat. What else could I do but laugh? I steady myself, stuck in a deep breath, and open my mouth to sing. Why did I choose such a solemn song? After my final note, I step back from the mic and wait. The audience starts to clap. Someone stands up. 2 more people, 6 more. Suddenly everyone is on their feet and clapping furiously. After my involuntary striptease, I hadn't expected anything like an ovation. I can feel a tear threatening to spill over my eyelids and down my cheek, but I quickly wipe it away, for I've had enough embarrassment for one night. As the evening comes to a close, we all hold hands and sing Old Lang Syne in haunting 3-part harmony, moving me to tears once again. I say goodnight to the host and head to my car, still too embarrassed to hang around any longer than necessary. Before turning the key in the ignition, I shake my head, pondering the night's events. How did it happen? In Barbara's haste to finish my kilt on time, she decided to use Velcro. causing my kilt to catch the corner of my chair and fly open. Her face pales as I share my embarrassing news. She sputters out one apology after another while refusing to accept payment for her work. After several days of reliving my humiliation, it occurs to me that I should look at this experience from a more positive perspective. Although it reveals things I didn't want others to see, and then some, it also revealed things I needed to see. I can't control the unknown. I need to take myself more seriously. But I possess more courage than I'd realized. So I've decided it's time to toss my shame aside like an unfelt fettered kilt. Thank you from Miss Findlay. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to read her stuff. It's great fun. Okay, so
Beautiful job you did on it, Herb. So you're going to give us some of your own now, eh?
Well, if I can find where I buried it.
Dig it out. I could listen to you all night. You're a great reader, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Did you want one or two, or you had enough of me?
I think, well, I don't know. You got 10 minutes or so. We should be good. You get one or two in 10 minutes.
Let's just go with one. The title of this thing caught me, a thing on Facebook. And so I just had to go and see what it was. And it was Reverend Dominic Chmielewski. And for half an hour, he regaled his congregation in Polish. I was mesmerized. I watched the whole half hour and listened closely. And of course, I didn't make out a single word. But the title intrigued me. His title was, "This is the last day of your life." How could you not avoid, how could you avoid listening to that, eh? So I've stolen this title. This is the last day of your life. And it turns out what I wrote seems to be apropos for New Year's. This is the last day of your life that you fill with hatred and suspicion. When you curse a fellow being and when you spit in another's face and call him enemy. This is the last day of your life when skullduggery is part of it, when you beggar your neighbor, when you withhold your love. This is the last day of your life when you tell a fib or lie outright, when you do a little cheat, you know, that little white lie that doesn't matter. This is the last day of your life that you invite vengeful thoughts into your life, when you break your concentration of a possible good deed and think instead of dirty tricks and the pranks are funny and presume your victims will understand. They won't. This will end that. Just think, just think. This will be the last day in your life when you promise good, when you presume goodwill from others and take advantage anyway and benefit at the expense of those others. And this will be the last day in your life that you think about suicide or one last hit, or when you put off that promised exercise regime to get fit, or that last cigarette or that last great steak dinner before you diet. This is the last day in your life that you rule with pride when you fail to tame your too eager ego or to replace it with respect or a helping hand. This is the last day in your life that you indulge that devil jealousy and fail to recognize your target's dignity to allow them their own moment. This will be the last day in your life when you think about it and choose to write that and choose not to write that great poem, to give that ultimate gift, to grant respect, to grant love, to love yourself. This is the very last day that you swear in anger or curse yourself for being you. And this is the first day that you swear goodwill and peace to make that your ultimate sacrifice. This is the first day in your life when you will fight for justice for those who have found none. Be it in action or in poetry strong, to fight for right is never wrong. And this will be the first day when the new leaf will read, with love from me to you, with respect, dignity, and fellowship. This will be the first day in your life when the sun shines on you and you wed life with all good heart and willingness to be one with me and with everyone, to stand tall and to be that great goodwill. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Herb. That was as Christmassy as you can get, but you didn't say Christmas once. So kudos to you, but goodwill to all people. Yeah.
No, it was fire and brimstone in the sermon.
Yeah.
Good
Oh, I
advice.
wonder what he said in Polish, eh?
I'd like to see the translation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that
Thank
was
you so much for having me.
Thank you for
this has
that.
been fun.
Yeah, beautiful energy,
Yeah,
beautiful contribution.
And everybody who's read so far, I just loved it. It's been a beautiful night.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're gonna move along here, and I'm gonna jump down because Jennifer says she's gonna read a pretty serious one later on, so I'm gonna read after her to lighten things up before we close tonight. So let's hear from Joe Lunchbucket, who's in live and in person there at Char's Landing, I believe. Come on up to that podium and share us your words of wisdom for the night, Bob. I probably should have given you a heads up so you can cover the 50 feet up. There we are. I see you now. Okay. Top of the season to you, Bob.
Pardon me?
Top of the season to you.
Oh, there, yeah. Likewise, yeah.
Okay. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay. We funded French and tribal tongues when the whole world speaks English. Spent 40 billion for Native reconciliation. Sunk tax dollars into Notre Dame Cathedral against atheists' wishes. Blew big bucks on safe drug injection sites and for the addicted. But flood relief, insulin and blood thinners for diabetics and heart patients is restricted. We save taxes by stopping gender conversion therapy. Constellan Siberian you work, you eat incentive, entice street people into farm labor. Does a majority rule in a democracy, or do all political parties use tax dollars to buy minority votes? Is the opposition politically correct and doesn't object? Okay, I got another one here. Societies have different death rights. I observed two longtime friends that lived in the same home, attending the passing of their elder. The senior citizen was stretched out on a living room pillow, breathing her last 2 hours on earth, with her two younger clanmates on either side of her. When life's breath ceased and her body cooled, I picked her up and placed her under her favorite shade tree, where her friends rejoined her on both sides again, until I took her away.
Thank you, Bob. All right. Okay, and our next reader is going to be Jackie Carmichael. So glad you could make it, Jackie. I know you had something that delayed you, but we're always happy to see your smiling face.
So good to be here, and happy holidays to everybody, whatever that means for you, at a time where some of us are probably missing people we'd usually be seeing, right?
Mhm.
That's very difficult. So it is nice to have this continuity, and I hope maybe Zoom or some other way you can make a connection with those people that you're missing. I know that's what I'll be resorting to. So
yeah.
It's so good to hear everybody. I'm reading something from a novel that's in progress, and progress is a very loose word for it. So eventually, my disoriented mother decided to build a house of her own on the Haven Bay land she bought with the $3,000 her father left her. Mother didn't trust architectural plans, or perhaps she didn't trust her ability to follow them. My mother had never been a very exact person. Until the first stage of beach glass was built with scraps of recycled lumber, we lived in a tent in the rainy season, carried water from a spring. We used an octagonal outhouse covered in cedar shakes, much to the scandal of our neighbors and the inspection department, which issued a number of citations to my mother. The ominous yellow slips were quickly ignored and crumpled, but the house was quickly roughed in just after the first day of school in 5th grade, when I dug to the bottom of a basket of wet and wrinkled clothes, wondering what to wear. A photo of Mr. Robinson's class in that year captures us in our glory. I'm the one with the shiny brown nylon shirt that I loved and had to continue to wear even after I melted part of the collar with an iron, because it was my only best shirt, practically my only shirt. My hair cut too short in an abortive attempt to style its waves, and one leg of my blue jeans is rolled up and one is not. That picture pretty much describes my adolescence. It was to Haven Bay that my mother retreated after the divorce, her mental situation seemingly stabilized out of my father's reach. There was what I think of as my really bad hair year. She had worked in a plywood factory during the Second World War, she reasoned. How hard could it be? Building a house wasn't as hard as it might sound when you're physically strong and creative woman and appealing to men like my mother was. She was wildly innovative at times, like she'd bring a fellow home who looked as if he had just hitchhiked across the continent, which he often had. And as pleased as if she'd found a $20 bill in her jeans, she'd say, "This is Paco. He knows how to make stairs." And Paco would live with my mother and her 2 adolescent daughters for a day or a week until the stairs were done, or it turned out that he just wanted to party at night and sleep all day. To my mother's credit, she stopped bringing hitchhikers home after we freaked out one too many times, but she claimed to never understand quite what the fuss was about. Like all mothers brought hitchers home. As far as we know, they did. The old gentleman she met at the store, he could help her with the Pier and Beam Foundation. Her estranged husband had a side business selling cedar shakes culled from the back logging roads, so he could be leaned on to supply those to keep a roof on his kid's head. And Gaston, a handsome French Canadian who had a crush on her since they were teens, he could join all her children on the steeply pitched roof to pound them in. When Gaston lost his balance and decided between sliding off the roof and taking a flying leap, he made what appeared to be a deliberate running jump off the perilous thing into a patch of salal and cedar and broke a number of ribs. For 6 months, we carried water from a spring a block away for drinking and bathing, using a picturesque octagonal cedar shake outhouse, which I despised. I was chastised more than once for putting maple leaves down it in a sort of primitive and ineffective potpourri. The Haven Bay Pirate Cove development was put in by Big Roger Heston. Aside from Heston Drive, he had named every other road in the subdivision after pirates or sea captains, despite the billboard's visual assertion that a one-eyed pirate with a telescope had set anchor along its rocky shores. The place had really only been inhabited by orange and purple starfish and dozens of bald eagles. They would gather along the shoreline when the salmon ran, looking like a bunch of somber World War I politicians with their black suits and white heads, which was, in fact, why I renamed it the Bay of the Eagles Convention. I spent a lot of afternoons there, stepping from stone to stone or digging in the patch of natural mineral clay, because Haven Bay was my downtown, my uptown, and my suburb. I used to think the name Pirate Cove was hokey, like Inspector Clouseau with his inflatable parrot. There were no pirates in these waters. From everything I'd heard, pirates don't even like the Pacific cold that seeps into your bones. But then I saw what I will always remember as the pirate's moon, a skiff of clouds like a skeleton's ribs, the whole skeleton present in wisps of clouds, and in the ribs where the heart would be, a giant pearl glowing, the moon. Thank you.
Super, thank you, Jackie. That Pirate's Moon, did you invent that or did you?
I saw that.
Beautiful. That's gorgeous. Okay, I'm looking forward to reading that whole novel. It's
Someday.
done. Yeah, someday I'm sure it will be. All right, Jennifer now is going to read to us from London, Ontario, the Forest City. We've kept you up late, I know, but
That's
thank
okay.
you for hanging in with us, Jennifer. Appreciate it, as always.
Friday night, I'm on vacation now, so.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for switching places, Derek. I think yours might be a good way to end off, given the season. Yeah, I'm out of season here. I'm almost the only poetry in the house tonight. Micki had one poem, but I may be it, depending upon what you're doing. It's nice to have the longer time. Thank you for including me. And I'm going to use it to do something a little unusual. I'm returning to my Auschwitz Threnody cycle. I've done the odd piece here and there in it. I'm going to do the 14th through the 17th sections, which are the last 4. And the middle 2 are quite short, and then the bookends are a little bit longer, and they would be world premieres, the first one and the last sections as far as the public reading goes. There are some quotations from other writings than mine, but that should be clear, I think. The Bible amongst some of them, for reasons you'll see. And of course, this was motivated by my visit there some years ago. Lieben Maximilian, 1, the great shepherd. Another tour memory, ushered to one more cell, final home for those starved in collective retaliation for an escape or the like. One small window leaks light. Artifacts materialize through bars. 3 large candles, one reaching higher than a ghostly kneeling supplicant, and a sign venerating one victim, Father Maximilian Kolbe. Born in Poland, 1894, German father, Polish mother, gifted a vision of the Virgin Mary at 12, and soon to an ethereal divergence contemplating holy orders beside Rudolph, a boy who would be the Auschwitz commandant. This other strode down an ever darkening path, Maximilian to the priesthood. Franciscan friar, teacher in Krakow, founder of a monastery, missionary in Asia, back to Poland 1936. Hold fast through the Nazi hurricane, refuse cover of German paternity, hide refugees, including Jews, step by step, issue anti-Nazi publications, arrested February 17th, 1941, Auschwitz, May 28th. Insistence on priestly vocation led to crunch crack and whip crack. Come high summer, one of those escapes meant 10 prisoner slaves, none Maximilian, packed off to the starvation dungeon. František Gazovnicek crying, "My wife, my children." Maximilian interceded. A few words, a quiet gesture, but a monumental moment amidst an eon of despair and horror. He took František's place, led others in prayer as they shriveled and faded one by one, until after 2 weeks he was alone in death's antechamber. Nazi patients exhausted, he was killed with an injection of carbolic acid. And František survived to bear witness, attend Maximilian's canonization, and contemplate this cell whose pitiless portal he never crossed. 2. I call to remembrance my song in the night. At the end of the track, fields of slaughter, punctuated by the shattered crags of crematoria 2 and 3, fields of enthrallment for the Sonderkommandos who pulled up the slain, processed, and loaded insatiable furnaces, fields of teeth buried by those same slaves who expressly have strewn them all over the terrain, as many as we could, so that the world should find material traces of the millions of murdered people. Fields of memory, forever expiring, history, suffering, butchery, defiance, reliquary for inestimable memoirs, including Solomon Grodowski, who wrote of teeth, and Lieb Langfuss, rabbi and rabbinical judge of Makow, Poland. Lieb was seized, shipped to the Malava ghetto November 1942, then Auschwitz December 7th. Wife and son annihilated immediately. Lieb consigned to the Sonderkommandos. Holding to his truth and refusing some duties, incredibly reassigned to sweeping the crematoria courtyard and preparation of gassed women's hair for those Nazi mattresses and socks as the ovens blazed on. But burning brighter still, determination to lacerate the necrotic pall, pray over the assassinated, steal priceless minutes from death's jaws to somehow record, commemorate, celebrate, and condemn, plant hopeful seeds of witness, one day, miraculously, to see the light, including 600 screaming, pleading, crying children jammed into a gas chamber, smiles creeping onto SS faces only after pesticide-induced silence. Have they never had any children? Passover 1944, Boyana Rebbe Moshe Friedman excoriates a Nazi officer, telling him they would pay tenfold for each murdered Jewish soul, leads his whole group in the Shema Israel prayer, then marches off to his doom. This spiritually exalted moment without a precedent in human life. A mixed cohort of Jews and Polish Catholics being driven to massacre, a Polish girl asks the Sonderkommandos to tell her people that she and her comrades died as heroes, the whole group rising in song, the Poles their national anthem, the Jews the Hatikva, future anthem of Israel. A terrible and cruel fate has ordained that the lyrical sounds of these different anthems mingle in this accursed corner of the globe. Lieb turned to more drastic action, helped plan a desperate revolt to blow up an engine of extermination. October 7th, 1944, plot discovered, insurrection flares, escapes made, 3 SS killed, revolt crushed, escapees and many more murdered, but crematorium 4 torched and crippled over there in the corner, a breathtaking spoke in the wheel of destruction. Last diary entry. Now we are being taken into the zone, the last 170 remaining of us. We are certain we are going to meet our death. 30 people have been selected to stay in crematorium number 5. Today is November 26th, 1944. I witnessed culmination. Urgently bury the priceless testimony. Step out of the execution line, confront SS officers. Final words to his soot-bound contingent. Let us now go to meet death bravely and with dignity. 3, they shall mount up with wings as eagles. Job on his ash heap won a victory, demanded a response from the whirlwind, and was answered, albeit with question after question. Who shut in the sea with doors and said, thus far shall you come and no farther? Maximilian and Lieb, 2, who took up that challenge, redirected it to evil on earth. Thus far, bodies forfeited to ravage and ruin, and no farther, heart, mind, will, and, for them, faith impregnable. And legions more who also heard that call, each answering in their own way. Now pause, be still, touch the teeming air, listen to the murmuring walls. That spirit is still here. It gleams in the corners of this oubliette become memorial, softly soars over the blasted racks and the meadows of volcanic memory, slips inside us through a crack to whisper and echo. Memorial plaque in 23 languages. Forever let this place be a cry of despair and a warning to humanity, where the Nazis murdered about 1.5 million men, women, and children, mainly Jews, from various countries of Europe. Auschwitz-Birkenau, 1940, 1945. Consider a million. Consider a million, just the first million. Mourn a million sagas brought to a choking halt right here in this infernal spot. Feel a million silent souls watching you. Cue their corpses head to foot from that odious gatehouse all the way to crematoria 2 and 3 at the back. Keep going, give everyone their space. And so repeat over and over, 1,840 times to accommodate them all. Carefully bestow each of the murdered into a casket. Form one precarious tower that soars more than 100 miles past the International Space Station. Line up a million vigilants, one for every shattered life, shoulder to shoulder along the highway westbound from Auschwitz. Watch that line snake on and on and on to Berlin and 30 miles past. Listen while each vigilant says the name of their martyr, one after the other, day and night, and still find yourself listening 34 days later. Devote 12 hours a day to reading obituaries, just 5 minutes apiece. Fold the last newspaper 19 years from now. Scan the memorial book, only one line for each of the million, all 16,667 pages of it. Hallow a million funerals, one by one round the clock, every one a short hour to pray, to eulogize, to say goodbye and to grieve, to remember and honor the lost but not forgotten. The final amen, 114 years in the future. Feel a million silent souls seize your spirit and voice, striving always to cry and sing out. Behold a million candles, their humble flickers melded into one, a glorious wafery spire of radiance streaming heavenward through the night, more than 100 feet high. Stretch out, they're all around. Consider each extraordinary one of that million, and so many more. And envoy. Brick, wood, stone, wire, grass, whole, wrecked, restored, burnt, petrified cairns of an inconceivable conquering nightmare that drove the shattered remnants of normality into the realm of nebulous dreams, a shrine of mute, eloquent witnesses always waiting to testify, watching me bid a hushed farewell as I retreated through peaceful, verdant countryside that still murmurs echoes of hellbound human-stuffed cattle cars, to venerable Krakow, and then home, part of me forever left behind within the razor wire and suitcase packed with ghosts, but engulfed in a stupefying cloud, eyes yet to see, ears yet to hear, spirit yet to feel. But in time the shadows slipped in and around, whispering, persistent, swelling to a haunting ethereal chorale, and finally, soul to paper, attempted, delving into remembrance, a meager, belated witness to shards of the incomprehensible, adamantine psychic fortresses of inhumanity that glower from every brick and blade of grass, fear beyond conception bleeding from every torture cell and death chamber, bravery and endurance and despair far outside my ken that stares back from picture frames and display cases, the air thick and resonant with a hymn of beautiful and tormented melodies slashed through by screeching chords that crash into wire and tracks and set them shuddering with why and how and what if, and splinter the sky with colored triangles branding the prey, green, black, red, and purple, endless arrays of yellow for the Jews, and my little pink cohort, condemned for their chromatic notes, which join the surging, desperate chorus of never again. only to be met with screams of panic and death from Cambodia, Rwanda, and more, entwining with that anguish symphony which, despite deadly horror and the struggle to survive, is infused with sacred strains of kindness and hope and devotion. Some bolder, like Rabbi Longfuss's resistance and testimony and Father Colby's sacrifice. Others, many, of subtler but deep tonality. Suppress your own tears and terror so you can comfort your child. Quick advice to a new inmate fresh off the train. Look strong. Lie about your age. Scrounge a good rag for a bunkmate's frozen feet. Smuggle a precious piece of rotten potato or a crust of bread for someone even hungrier than you. Carry a shovel for a weaker member of your work detail. Loving words for one drowning in hate. Tend to a fellow slave burning with fever. Smuggle gunpowder under a ragged dress bit by bit to build a supply for a revolt against the crematoria. Ease the passing of a martyr breathing their last. For those who miraculously lived, the audacity of memory and testament, somehow try to portray the unimaginable. Keep renewing that cry of never again. Remember the silenced millions. A mission accepted by Philip Muller, who testified to Lee Longfuss's final moments. Philip, who tried slipping into a gas chamber with the doom to end his pain, only to meet one of unfathomable nobility, a girl known now only to God, who urged him back. We must die, but you still have the chance to save your life. You have to return to the camp and tell everyone about our last hours. Perhaps you'll survive this terrible tragedy, and then you must tell everyone what happened to you. But I was not there in Elie Wiesel's kingdom of night as he was. I did not see, in his words, the old men and women whispering the ancient prayers, the children frightened and forlorn, all part of a nocturnal procession walking towards the flames rising to the highest heavens. I did not walk with those whose bodies survived, but whose spirits were forever shattered. So what seemed to rip and scar me were those renewed and revealed flashbacks to the petrified cairns of nightmare and the spectral visions that clutched and clung as my newly integrated soul threw off the scales, peered through younger eyes, and felt the clamoring multitudes resounding through hell on earth, clear to eternity, and suffusing me with shame for the world's deafening indifference to their fate, shame for my relative ease, anger and fear at the jackboots' resurrected hatred, wonder at hope and compassion defiantly blooming in a wasteland of agony, humility for sacred acts of faith in the teeth of profound evil. And so my presumptuous prayer, my supplication, is that this voice channels even a whisper of the legions whose courage and suffering transcends all understanding. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Jennifer. That was powerful, to say the least.
Thank you.
You know, remarkable for what you capture in terms of not just the horror, but the power of the human spirit to endure that, and how people under those incredible, horrible circumstances find aspects of strength that just lift them way beyond the oppressors, you know?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this section in particular, the final parts here, there is light and hope and inspiration despite everything.
Yeah.
It mixes in with it. And it's something that you see when you look at this hard enough.
Yeah, deep enough. As you have.
It's even writing it is, and reading it, it's a heck of a journey.
I'm sure.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, I'm going to change the channel.
Thanks, Derek.
A little bit, but beautiful reading, man. Thank you. So I'm going to get decked out here for this one because I got to do it right. But again, in the Christmas spirit, I got the red glasses to match so I can see what I'm actually reading. I'm going to dedicate this one to my mother-in-law, Morgan Maxwell. It's called The Mistress of Christmas. For many years, my mother-in-law earned and re-earned her honorary title of the Mistress of Christmas, not just for her headlong embracing of the giving spirit of the season, but also for her ability to make Christmas physically manifest inside and outside our home. For her, the season began in late November with numerous trips to Walmart and the dollar store to snag her share of the latest in lights, lasers, and tree trimmings. The bolder, the better. Sometimes I wondered if she saw herself as a player in a secret competition to see who could shout Christmas the loudest, and shout it she did. By the 1st of December, she'd be hounding me to drag the boxes out of the crawl space so she could start sorting and planning the strategy for the year. Though in the end, the performances varied only in what had been added to the mix. She preferred to store the Christmas kitsch in large apple boxes with removable lids she could write on, though the contents rarely matched the labels. And every year I'd be down there on my hands and knees, dragging them through the concrete dust and spiders to propel them up through the trap door. This involved at least 2 instances of me whacking my forehead on a floor joist or the cold air return duct on the furnace, the former of which was followed by a string of profanities that would send the dog fleeing to the far end of the house, and the latter of which resulted in a percussive boom that could be heard next door, followed by my mother-in-law's concerned query, "Are you all right down there?" She liked to do the outside lights first, preferring to undertake that at night when the darkness would allow her to properly see the stunning visual effect she was creating step by step as it unfolded. Every tree and bush in the yard endured a yearly transformation from its natural symmetry into a platform for my mother-in-law's unbridled enthusiasm for Christmas. Strings of multicolored lights spiraled off into the heavens from every corner of the yard. Some glowed in mute colors, some shone brighter than Rudolph's infamous nose, and some flashed on and off erratically as if dancing to the frantic beat of a metal band on amphetamines. Layers of floodlights and lasers played across the facade of the house, washing it in greens and reds and gigantic snowflakes. The coup de grace came in the form of old CDs hung with fishing line from the cherry tree, so as to reflect and amplify the vision of glory she had created. To her credit, she never succumbed to anything as easy as inflatable Santas or Yodas, those cheap vinyl blow-ups that spend the days collapsed like giant spent condoms on the lawn, and then rear up in every evening to bob and sway unnaturally in the breeze. I remember the first Christmas as a dutiful new son-in-law, donning my raincoat to help her light up the yard, thinking I was in for a half hour of ladders and extension cords before returning to the sanctity of our dry living room and a hot cup of tea. 3 hours later, I was still clinging to the upper reaches of the tallest tree in the yard, trying to dangle giant silver balls from the branch tips, while my mother-in-law directed me from the ground, saying, "Out just a few more inches, just a few more inches." As I finally dropped down out of the branches to feel the ground beneath my shaky legs, I turned around just in time to see the neighbor standing in the roadway with his hands in his coat pockets and his toque snugged down over his ears. Our symphony of lights played across the contours of his face as he sized me and all our decorations up in one look and said, "Are you done yet?" Rather than responding, I looked beyond him to his box-shaped bungalow with a single string of muted blue lights standing tall in a perfect straight line along his eaves trough, and tried not to imagine what he was thinking. One would expect that after the orgy of color and kitsch on the front lawn, my mother-in-law would be content with a more sedate tree indoors. But hey, she's not called the Mistress of Christmas for nothing. We just sold one of the 3 fake trees that has graced our living room over the years. It was called a flocked tree with built-in lighting and faux frosting on the tips of the branches. For a fake tree, it didn't look half bad on its own without any extra adornments. But for my mother-in-law, a Christmas tree was not a Christmas tree, unless it rendered your home visible as you drove down the hump into town at night. Extra strings of lights wound back and forth like garter snakes balling up in spring to mate. Suffice it to say, we never had any trouble reading the to and from stickers on the presents under the tree, even at night. As if the lights weren't enough, every branch bent with the weight of multiple balls, glass icicles, snowmen, and even an occasional ceramic pickle. Garlands spiraled around the outer reaches of the tree, threaded through, between, and over the ornaments. On the top sat a lopsided angel with gauzy fiber optical wings, stony eyes, and frighteningly real-looking hair. Her overall appearance reminded me of a feminized version of Chucky, which would surely have given children bad dreams. Over the years, the angel gave way to a variety of malfunctioning stars, depending on what China had concocted for the dollar store that year. And bit by bit, the number of boxes in our crawl space grew. This year, we are moving and had to haul every last box up, inspect it, and decide what to keep and what to give away. I managed to whack my head on a joist just once, and I don't think I even swore. My mother-in-law came to visit from Echo Village the night we decorated the tree. She's confined to a Broda chair now and has to be hoisted onto the toilet or into bed at night. But that old familiar gleam was in her eye as we placed her cherished ornaments one by one upon the branches. And as she relaxed in a Santa Claus cap with Michael Bublé crooning carols on the TV, and her granddaughter applied red and green nail polish to her fingernails, complete with snowflakes and gold stripes, she looked to be completely back in her old glory. It was almost as if with each fingernail painted, her body was finally becoming the manifestation of a Christmas she had strived for all those years, without the need for artificial lights. When it was time for her to go home, we bagged up a small plug-in Christmas tree for her to put on her night table and added a rigid red stocking ornament to go under it. Thankfully, as we loaded her into the lift-equipped van that took her home, she didn't even notice the one sad-looking reindeer made of bent wire and blue lights parked on our front lawn. It's our only exterior nod to Christmas, and likely would have made her sigh in disgust. Or maybe she saw it and decided not to make a fuss. Maybe she secretly knows what we do, that the Mistress of Christmas is a title she will rightfully take with her when she leaves this plane of existence, and that no one but her could ever earn the right to wear that mantle in our little family, where the most important things are often understood by all without the need for speaking them aloud. Thank you, thank you. That's it, that's all. And Merry Christmas, everybody, and happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, and whatever it is anyone wants to celebrate. I'm for celebration in this time of COVID, and seeing this year of 2021 out the door with a boot. So, before we go, I just want to thank you all for being here and for reading, sharing your work, and sharing your attention with each other. It's a precious thing. And I don't know about everybody else, but I thoroughly enjoyed the readings tonight. There were so many moments that really struck chords with me. So yeah, I see some thumbs up and some applauding going on. That's good. So big thanks to you all, and big thanks to Char at Char's Landing for being our Zoom host as always. Reminder, if you can spare some change, e-transfer at charslanding.com, always appreciated. And thank you to Karl for moderating us, and for Jackie for being our artistic director, to Micah Gardner for being our resident photographer, and to beautiful Luma hanging in the rafters there at Char's, gleaming down on us.
It's beautiful.
May you all have a wonderful little holiday from whatever you normally do. Stop doing it and just be for a while. That's my best advice. Be for at least just a week, just be. And hopefully we'll get to see everybody again in 2022. Carl, do you have the date for
I think it's
January?
the 21st of January. That's the third Friday of the month.
Perfect, perfect.
So,
Third
and
Friday.
thank you to Derek. And I know everybody is on my email. If Lori, if you want to just email me at Electric Mermaid. Oh shoot, I forgot. Just email me. I can't remember. Go to charslanding.com and you'll find the email. I can't remember the email address off by heart.
Okay. I always
Derek.
gap on that too.
Thank you, Derek, for everything you do.
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. Thank you all for coming tonight. Take good care, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
Joy,
Bye.
joy in whatever way you can.
Merry Christmas.
Blessings to all.
Thank you, Char.
Oh, there I am. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy 2022. Jennifer, you are hardcore, hey? You're still with us.
Yeah, I'm just clicking on the leave.
Yeah,
you're
thanks
the
for staying up
first-
late. It's really late there, so thank you.
Yeah, off to bed.
Yes.
Thanks, folks.
Good night.
Bye.
Oops.